So, in the previous tutorial, we talked about basically intermediate static animation, multi-component static animation, and that kind of leads on to what I categorize as advanced animation, which is basically customizing or creating your own behavior graphs to dictate how the animations behave in terms of states and transitions. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, the pretext to this is I expect that you, again, know your way around NifSkope. This is a very advanced tutorial. There's, a way to kind of build this up from scratch. If you go to my website, link in the description, you have a lot of tutorials that help you get along to this point. But basically now, what we're going to do is go ahead and change the way we do things in the first place. So I'm going to introduce, kind of the motivation, the practical application to this. So we have a Dwemer arm thing here. So if we extend this thing, and it's not complete entirely, so there may be some missing spots, but you can see that we not only have different animations, and they're not named according to what we were naming them before, so they wouldn't work with a default behavior graph, but also there are basically multiple levels. So for example, you can't play the animation work without first going to extend, so you need some kind of indicator, a state, if you will, that indicates that, what you can do and when. And then you can retract, goes all the way back. Of course, there's also extension and maybe something like this. So there's different ways to move it around, obviously. So that's what we're going to be doing, is basically figuring out how to make advanced animations like this. Obviously, you'll kind of surmise that at this point, I'm not showing you how to build up to this point. You should be able to do that if you're going to follow along in this tutorial. That's the prerequisite. So I have the previous tutorial, which shows you how to do NIF intermediate NIF animation, and then the one before that does basic animation. So that's that. So there's not going to be much hand holding here. So what I want you to do is you're going to go to, let's see here, Dragonborn. Open that. Meshes, DLCO2, attach objects, and extract rotate helper. Okay, extract that. And then we're going to go to wherever that was. So let's do that now. It's going to be in whoops, that's the wrong one. DLCO2 attach rotate helper. Now you're going to copy this whole folder and put it in the location where you have your NIF file, your animated object, right? So it should ideally be somewhere in your meshes folder. And so say that this one is your NIF object, then you'll have a folder here. You paste it in the same directory like this, right? So I already have mine here. And inside it, you'll have something like this, except it'll be called rotate helper. Rename that to whatever you want, basically a unique name. And the only thing we're going to need from here is the behavior 00 HKX. So we're going to move that over. And what I need you to do is basically you have to have these programs. I have links in the description for them, HKX CMD or Convert UI, or just HKX CMD. So paste this into your in folder if you open UI, or just paste it here if you're using CMD. And then Convert UI is pretty obvious, right, intuitive. If you don't have that for whatever reason, let's just go ahead and I'm going to open this, and let's move over to that directory. And the command is hkxcmd convert, then specify the folder. I'm going to put it in a separate folder because there's just too much junk here. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to copy it, in fact. Just way too much junk here. Paste it in there. Put tutorial, that's the folder. Converting, that's your output. I'm going to change its name to tutorial.xml. And let's go ahead and open this. Now I recommend you have some kind of code editing program or some kind of notepad editing program that has some color coding, because it's just really annoying to go through this. Reading in black and white text, it's kind of a headache. Where am I here? Okay, yeah, okay. So that's the older one. I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna copy mine from scratch. I don't want to confuse anyone. So I'm gonna delete this and take this from scratch, which means I have to go back to attach objects, rotate helper, behaviors, and yeah, paste over that, and let's just redo that. Okay, and I'm gonna again rename it. Okay, so this is the thing we're editing. I don't know what all this stuff is. Not relevant to us. Right, so basically, let's see here. So what exactly are we looking at? Long story short, there's a mathematical and computational model of an abstract computing machine, if you will, called the finite state machine. And basically, this is what we're looking at: is you can abstract this to a finite state machine. And that'll make sense to you as I draw it. So excuse me for my terrible MS Paint drawing here. But you need some context for this. That will come in the form of a tutorial. If you look at my doors and elevators tutorial, you'll see what I'm doing here. So basically, remember in our doors and elevators tutorial, we had called the play animation forward and play animation backward. And those might not have been clear in terms of where they even came from. So this is what actually happens. This is composed of states, state information, transitions, and then basically additional information on that. What a finite state machine is from a computational perspective is a set of states and transitions that operate on the machine to change states, and that represents a computational model. So basically, let me find the first state, which is it's called state 00 here, and this corresponds to idle 01. So basically what this means is, here it says we're going to state 1, so I'm going to make that transition now. State 1. And that's with event 3. So this transition is, the input required is event 3, which corresponds to forward, right? Event 3 is forward, yep. Forward. So when you call play animation forward, this is actually what's happening. Is it's in state 1, it moves to state 0 to state 1. And that calls an animation, right? So that's what's happening here. It goes to state 1. This is idle. So this is this in and of okay. So more accurately, what I want to do, is set the output. I think more precisely, this would be a melee machine, if I recall correctly. So the output is in the state itself. So the output is idle right there, 1, idle 1. It's moving to this guy over here, and this guy, I'm going to make it smaller so I can write inside here. So if we go to state 0, 1, which is where it's transitioning, as you can see, state 0, 1 is this thing here, to state ID 1. And again, if this isn't clear, it'll be so in a little bit. So state 1 slash, oh my god, I'm so terrible at this. What am I doing? So state 1, let's go to state 0, 1. And that is play 0, 1. So let's write that. So play 0, 1. So what happens, what we have here is now a functional machine in that there's a transition. So you start at the initial state S0, then when the event input forward is given, you make this transition, and the result is that this machine moves from state 0 to state 1, and its output is play 0, 1, right? So it plays that animation. We're not done yet, though, because at state 1 there's a transition. At state 1 there's a transition. So state 0, 1, its transition array is this thing. It goes to state 2, its event ID is 0 with that. So let me just give myself extra room here. And so we're going to make it bigger. I don't have my pad right now. Yeah, that's as good as it's going to get. Let me make it wider, though. So state 2, this is event 0. Right, which is associated with a string, but I don't know if it can be called an input. It's associated with end. I don't know if that's really what it's doing per se, but I'm going to put it anyway. And so S1 and this is this goes to state ID 2. So let's go to state 0, 2. That's idle 0, 2. Great. So from idle 0, 2, which is state 0, 2, that's the associated sequence generation. It goes to state 3, and with event 4, which is backward. So it goes to state 03. Remember, because it's 0 base, that's the fourth state. And the event is 4, which is backward. Okay, so let's go to state 03. That should be the last state. Its associated generator is play 02, of course. And its transitions, this is not relevant to us. Its transition is to go to state 0 and with event 0, which is just, again, end. So basically, when you have, remember, your elevator or doors or elevators, whatever, and you're calling forward, what actually happened is that we have this thing here. So let's see what happens really. So say your player goes into your activator bounding box and triggers your elevator. What happens simultaneously is as follows: is basically it's here, and you called forward on it. It has a forward transition, so it follows this path. So it goes here, and the result is play 01. So it relays that play 01 to the NIF file, so it goes up, because that's the play 01 animation. That's the name of the animation here, and now it's here. And I think end is a special label. I might be wrong about that, I don't recall. But you're able to transition to backward. So you can, maybe it's an automatic transition. I don't quite recall. But then so then you can call backward from state 2. You're at state 2 now. And you call backward, so it goes back down, right? Because you just called backward, so it moves to state 3. Then there's an automatic transition. It plays play 2, and so that's the downward animation. That's returning back to wherever you were after you implemented that animation. And so that's what this is. But this is, first of all, this is not useful for us because really you're just going from one state to another. You're going from, because these are automatic transitions, so you have play 1, play 2, play 1, play 2. That's not useful for something like this where you have a bunch of complicated things, right? That's not helpful. And so what we need to do is basically kind of imagine our own thing. What are we doing with this? Now, I've thought of writing a program for this because it's so annoying to do it in the text. But basically, so what is going on here is we start at extend. So really, we were at retract, I believe, yeah. So retract is kind of the default state, so we'll do that. We'll say that state 0 is retract. I'll just call it state 0. Just put retract here. Retract. Right, so this is the initial state. And what can we do at this initial state? Well, we can extend. That's pretty much all we can do. So we want to transition from this state over to another state, S1, and the output is extend. Okay. And with what? Well, we can kind of, we'll just kind of, I'll call it T extend. So, and we're going to say it's event 3 T extend. So let's go ahead and implement that portion of the functionality before we do anything else. So how do we do that? Well, right now we don't, we have the ability to kind of modify instead of just adding new states, because we already have these states that already exist. So one thing to take note of is the start state ID. You can change that. We're going to leave it to 0. That's the state we're starting at. So let's go to state. Well, first of all, let's change the name of these strings. So you can see there's a correspondence here. Remember when you were calling forward and backward for play animation? Well, this is where that comes from. We're going to change that, as we said before. Let's rename this. So this used to this is event 3, right? So look, it's 0 base, 0, 1, 2, 3. We need to change this to, I'm going to name it, oops. Yeah, no. Transition extend. Or I'm just going to put T extend for short. So that's what that's going to do, right? So we need to look at state 0, 0. Its associated generator, which is basically the thing that creates a sequence. If you remember, or if you recall at all, messing with NifSkope, you may have recalled that there's sequential animation. That's the legacy version, Gamebryo animation, where you have to use a time step and slowly and incrementally modify the position of the vector across some interval. And so this skips all that. We don't have to do this because this sequence generator does that for us, essentially. So, as I was saying, we need to look at the transitions, and this is state 0, 0. State 0 goes to state 1 with event ID 3, so that's what we have here. So let's go to state 1. Well, let's just look at this further. What can we do now that we've extended? Well, we can retract, so we can do this. We can go back to retract from extend, although I don't remember. Okay, that's fine. So retract, which puts us back at this. So from state 1, actually, we want this. We want an event. And this is not, this would be a Moore machine, not Mealy. Anyway, so let's say that this is event 4 and T retract. Okay, what does that do? So at state 0, 1, well, let's modify the string first. It's T retract. State 0, 1. Generator is 60, which is up here. And that's going to play retract, which is, again, we're just kind of making it easy on ourselves. See, retract is the name of the animation here. So we want it, well, no, but this is state 0, 1, so we want it to play extend. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. But we need to add an element to the transition array. So basically, this transition info array you can think of as how many arrows are associated, how many transitions are associated with a state going out. So you can see there's only one here. So add one. So num elements, change that to 2. Copy this chunk right here and add, copy paste. This is not important. Neither is this, but this part is. So transition 55, that's the same thing. It's just a animation blender. Event, associated event, that would be 4, event 4, because that's the associated string. It's number 4. To state ID, we're going to change that to 0. We're going to have event 4 going to 0, right? So what is happening is basically once we've extended, then we go here, and that retracts. That's retract, right? So we go to state 0, 0, and we change this to retract. Now, let's make it so there's say we need an initial state. We need to initialize it because this doesn't do it, or for whatever reason, sometimes in Creation Kit we need to initialize something to a particular setting. So we're going to make a transition that loops back to this state itself. Name that E5. And we're name that T initialize. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is state 0. Let's look at state 0, 0. Transitions is here. Let's copy that, add a new transition. And remember, this is not important, but this is. Remember, so if you don't account for the number of elements properly somewhere or something, or you miss something, there's an ID mismatch, it mostly has to do with the syntax and the parsing of XML. Because if you have one element here, it's not going to parse properly because it's going to think there's only one element, not expect 2. And then it's not going to output the HKX file. So be sure to account for all that, or you will get lost. So let's see. We want, this is state 0. Transition is 64. So event ID is 5 and state 0. And that's all we have to do here. So we have to go up here again because we have to add that string. So we have 5 right here. We need to add another one, put 6 there. T init. I can just put init for initialize. Okay. So that's what's happening. So now we have that. So you start here. And let's kind of go along with what is actually happening. So you start at state 0, so it'll be looking like this. And maybe you want, in your script, you want to initialize it to a certain state. Yeah, let's initialize to 0, so that's what's happening. And then in your script, the player activates something, and it goes to extend, right? So what's happening? It goes this way. And extend is the result. Okay, and then the player activates something else, and tret is called, and it retracts. So that's what happens. Okay, so we have basic, extend, retract, whatever. Okay, so from this, so let's add something where we start here, and then we can start working. So the arm starts working, doing stuff. That would be from extend because you can't do anything from retract. So the extend state is where we have to do that. And so let's add another state here. S2. Let's put work. And let's add another transition. So this is going to be a new event. E6 T work. Okay. So once we're at this stage, there's a few things you can do. Basically, you can have I think you are able to have an automatic transition to go back, or you can just have this and it stays here once it's extended, and then you retract. Well, it's just the same resulting position as going back here. And so, but let's just add this, what we just did. Think about the design later. So let's add a new string here. It's going to be T work. Is that right? So, yep. And so let's add a new element. Remember, you have to account for the number of elements in here. By the way, that also reminds me very quickly. So this is 5. Let's copy 2 of these. Okay, and add it. So this is the event infos. Let's change that to 7. So that's 7 of them now. Okay, so let's go to state 01. That's the transitions. And so that's associated with 0061. Be sure that you're operating on the right one. So copy this. Transition, that's not important. Our event is 6, number 6. Event 6 goes to state 2. Okay. Now remember, you have to count for the number of transitions. There's 1, 2. Am I pointing to the right one? Let's see, so we're going to state 2 from here, back to state 0. Okay, yeah, no. Yeah, but, no, I'm right. It's, okay. But I forgot that there's one extra one here that we can just modify it, and that just is 2. So 1 here and 2 here. It's the arrows going out. So 2 elements, 2 state 2. That's correct. We don't even need to modify that. But event ID is 6. So when event ID is 6 is called from state 1, well, it goes to state 2 obviously, because that's how the behavior is defined. And so that's 2. Event ID is 6. Goes to state 2. Okay, and then from state 2, let's say, okay, we want to work state 2. Well, maybe we want to keep working, so we're going to do this. We're going to keep working more. So we're going to say this is event 6. Input 6, which is just T work again. So at state 2, let's go to state 2, look at where the transitions are. Well, the generator 2, right? Let's go to the generator. It's going to call work. It's going to play the work animation. Okay. And E6, we want to add a transition. We're just going to modify the one that's already there so I don't get confused. So the associated transition, this is state 2. Transitions. Okay. and we want to use event ID 6 to get from state 2 back to state 2. So we're just looping back and playing work again if we want to. Okay, good. Now, maybe we want to stop working. So let's just, we'll do it both ways for now. We'll do it from here. So let's add another transition. This will go back to retract. And so this is going to be E4 T retract. That's E4. Technically, you could just add an extra event, but it's not necessary since we already have one. So let's go look at state 2. State 2 is here. The associated transitions 0058. So let's add one here. That's 2 now. Copy this over. Paste it, that whole chunk, of course. And let's see here. We want to go from state 2 to state 0. So we're going to state 0 using what? Using E4 as the input. That's event 4. This is not important. That's fine. Okay. Great. And I think that's all we want to do for now to make this work. Of course, I have like a lot more work to do here because we have extra things we want to do. And like I said, I might just write a program for this to make it simpler. And I'll post that here if I do. It'll take a week. I'm very busy. So let's just kind of start from the beginning. Make sure we didn't screw anything up. I should mention one thing. You want to make a new state. Maybe you ran out of states. You want to make a new one. What you do is as follows, okay? Find HKB state machine info, right? It should have state 00 here. Copy from there all the way to BGS Gamebryo sequence generator. Copy all of that, right? It should be the one that's associated with the state you're copying. And put it in here after, I recommend after everything. Okay, now what you have to do is find the highest number in this ID. And so find 0068. Okay, that doesn't exist, so you use that one. So the thing you just duplicated is here. So go up to the highest one, the smallest one you just duplicated, smallest ID. Change that to 68, then 69, then 70. And generator is the thing you just renamed, changed the ID of, which is 68, retract. So this is 69 now. I mean 68. So change that. Generator 68. This transition is 69. Okay. Rename your state. Well, the highest. You can name it a unique name, but I mean, probably for more complicated things you would want that. But state 04 doesn't exist, so name it state 04. Okay, you've got that. And Gamebryo sequence generator, change that. So 04 doesn't exist, 03 does. So where are we? Let's go back to where we were. So generator 68 here. Change that to the one that doesn't exist yet, 04. 04. I try to associate with the name of the state, right? So if it's like blah, then blah generator. Keeps things organized. And so this is the sequence, this is the animation you want to play when it gets to the state. and of course your transitions, you need to account for that. And another thing is then you have to add a state down here. So number of states changed to 5. So you add the ID of the HKB state machine info you just created, 0070 here. Okay. Make sure that there are no collisions with IDs and such. But we don't need to do that. We have plenty of states, right? So we don't need to do that. So let's just go through one more time and make sure that things are working out. The initial state is, well, let's go from top to bottom just to be sure that we have the proper numbers and everything. So 7 elements, and we have 7 elements here. That's correct. And we have 7 elements here. That's also correct. That's what we modified. Now, did we ever get to state 03? No, we didn't, right? We only have up to 2 states, so we can kind of ignore that for now. Let's continue. So we didn't modify that at all. So let's go to state 00 to start, because that's where we start. And account for everything. So let's look at our transitions. That's 64. How many elements are there? It says it's 2. Is there really 2? Yes, it looks like there is. Now, this one is an older one. Did we use it? Event 3 to state ID 1. Yeah, it looks like that's right. And then this one down here. Is using event 5 back to state ID 0. Okay, that's also correct. So make sure that the animation is correct. Go to generators 63. Retract, that's correct. So let's go to the next state, state 01. Okay. Look at the transitions for 01. It says it has 2 elements. Indeed, it does have 2 elements. What are those 2 elements? There's one T-ret, which is event 4. Event 4 going to state ID 0, that's correct. And then event 6 going to state ID 2, that's also correct. And let's go to the generator. For that, it's 0060, and that says extend as we specified. So let's go to state 02, and generator is Gamebryo sequence generator 2. That's work as we specified. And then the transitions. Transitions 58, which is this thing. Does it have 2 elements? Yes, it does. Okay. What are those 2 elements? The first, this bottom one is event 4 goes to state 0 as we specified, correct? And event 6, which goes back to 2, loops around back to 2 as we specified. Okay, good. And that's all we need to worry about. So let's, we saved that. Where am I here? So you can either use, like I said before, let me make sure I am at the right place. I don't know why it's not telling me. Tutorial XML. Okay. So tutorial XML, that's where I'm at. Okay. So you can either do convert UI and go to xml.hkx, put in the name of your XML file, .xml, and then click convert, and that'll convert it into the out folder, right? Or you can use the CMD, the prompt go to tutorial, wherever you have your XML, and let me remember. Oops, no, that's wrong. Remember where the command is for this. Export it. Make sure that the size should generally be a lot smaller, right? If that's not happening, it's not exporting right. So in that case, just use convert UI, because you don't have to wrestle with the syntax of the command, right? So put your tutorial or whatever XML in the in folder, and then just convert, right? If it complains about work not being accessible, run it as an administrator, and so you should have this. Put that. Oh, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. I get confused. That's even wrong. It's behavior 00. Right. Do not replace the one you renamed. Okay, so you have this folder. That's your HKX. You didn't do anything to this, you just renamed it. But your behavior 00 is what you just modified. Paste that over. Okay. So if you want to so at this point, if you actually got an HKX out of that, that means that your XML is not erroneous. So the syntax is not erroneous. The structure is not erroneous. The second step is to then open that thing in Creation Kit. So if you view it here, you get it to this point, and it doesn't crash. Okay, so at least it doesn't crash. That's step 2. Great. Now, what we're going to do, because we obviously did some modifications to that behavior in the behavior graph, and remember, you have to have this, if I didn't specify. And I might not have, so I'm going to do it now. So this is the location of the NIF file. In that same directory, remember, put your folder in there. Okay. Now look at the BS behavior graph extra data. You have to have that added in extra data list, right? You should know that already. And you see this behavior graph file. This points from the meshes directory. Then you go to dungeons, as it says, dungeons, ESX mecha, right here, ARM, and there should be the ARM HKX. And the ARM HKX does the further referencing, right? So that's what you should have here. Okay, good. So we have to follow the functionality we implemented, not the stuff that's in the animation, the names of the animations directly. So let's just do that. We start at state 0. Let's say we're just going to kind of go through the animations. So we start there, state 0, and to extend, remember, what did we say for extension? Is T extend, as we have here. So let's do that. So play animation T extend. How long does that take? Let's find out. Takes 3 seconds. I'm going to put utility.wait 3.2 seconds, 3.1 seconds. Okay, and then after that, what did we do? What do you want to do? We're now at here. We want to do T work, so that's called T work, and T work brings us to this state. So T work. How long does that take? About 20 seconds. 21. And finally, we want to retract. Which, remember, is retract right there. Let's make sure, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure everything corresponds properly here. This looks correct, okay? And let's wait another, I think it's about 3 seconds. Good. T extend, T work, T. Oh, no. See, I almost messed up, which is, we put T retract. Okay. Good. So I have it set up to where we have a default activator, and then this has get linked reference to the Dwemer arm here. Okay, press OK. I'll link it. Let's save it. I'm going to delete this.